Assalamu alaikum. This is Muslim Billionaires episode 2. And today I think we're just going to get into something that's very interesting to me, that's been really, really trendy, especially on TikTok, Instagram, whatever. And it's mentioned something about, the title of this is The Great Lock-In. But before we get into that, I think we need to kind of regress to the beginning of what the Great Lock-In is. I'll reserve my thoughts about what that trendy movement is going on. To explain the Great Lock-In quickly, it's somebody that's quote-unquote locking in mentally, physically, financially, trying to achieve their accomplishments from a time period of September to December, which is very fascinating to me, nevertheless. But, of course, we have to start regressing from the stage of where do you even get to that point. I think there has to be a point A to the Great Lock-In, quote unquote. So what I want to start with is failure. One of the easiest things that we accomplish is failure, but we don't look at it as an accomplishment. The reason why I use the keyword accomplishment is because I'm at a place personally that I embrace failure, right? Why? Because I know two things. One is to put in the work, and two, to leave it in God's hands, right? The process of the amount of failures that you have becomes a storyline for you. Now, if you don't learn about your own storyline and you're not even thinking about the process rather than the finished product, then that becomes the issue. The reason why we're so fixated on the finished product is because it's what we see. When we see somebody that's highly accomplished, very successful, we see the finished product only. We don't see their storyline unless they put out a documentary and you see their humble beginnings and what the process looks like, blah, 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 so on and so forth, right? For us, why don't we have or start embracing what our documentary starts to look like? Why don't we actually see what our storyline starts to look like? You have a story. Alhamdulillah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God, has given you a gift to have a story. How you have that story, right? Obviously, from a spiritual Islamic standpoint, everything is written, right? Right? And for us, we have choices. And a part of our choices is struggle, right? How do we struggle? So again, the mindset of having to struggle can be painful or it can be peaceful. It's really up to you. It's that saying, when you see at Twitter or, on Instagram, choose your heart. As cliche as that sounds, yes, you have to choose your difficulties, right? Do you want to be, for example, from a marital standpoint, do you want to be single or do you want to get married, right? But choose your heart, because both of them have their own struggles. If you're single, you're going to have struggles with your own desires, right? Practically, privately, publicly, whatever it is. And if you're married, you're going to have your difficulties with your spouse. That comes with it. It's not a romantic movie that you watch and all we see, again, is the finished product. So before we really, really get into what the Great Lock-In is and what my thoughts about it is, I just want us to kind of regress where it all starts from. Do you embrace failure? Is that a question that you ask yourself? Do I actually embrace how much I fail? Is that the fun part about what I get into? Do I really care more than likely about what I generate in income? Do I care about the status and how people look at me? Do I really care about how many likes I get? How many views I get? Does that really matter, or what really matters is my storyline, something that I'm personally documenting, right? This is why I'm personally recording these podcasts, right? I want to see my humble beginnings. This is documenting every single time. I know I'm not going to be perfect during this entire duration of building my brand on Muslim Billionaires, but simultaneously, I know there's a story behind it. and a story that I don't want to keep, but a story that I want to embrace and then be a source of inspiration amongst others. What is your story? And not only are you going to ask yourself that question, once you understand what your story is, with amongst multitude of failures, how do you become a source of inspiration? Do you just explain your success to them? Or do you explain your failures? See, God gave us choices. And one of the choices that God has gifted us, right, is to see if you keep knowledge to yourself. Knowledge can be something that you know because of age and a lot of experience, but simultaneously, your experiences come with failure. Are you too embarrassed to tell people how much you failed? Are you above failure? Are you above the program of losing? Right? So to me, when you process that in your mind and ask yourself, before I pursue what it is, because the previous episode we were talking about is the preparation of success, right? But before I pursue that, who am I? And what is the process that actually looks like for me in this story, right? And then when I do fail, how do I respond? Life is very interesting, right? Alhamdulillah. What life gives us is a lot of choices, but amongst all those choices is how we respond to some of the things that come our way. And our response is way more emphatic and way more important, right, than what comes to us. We don't explain the struggles that come to us. We explain to other people how we struggle towards it. Now, how do you level up from that is, you don't need to explain it to anybody except your creator, right? And the next level to that is actually embracing that struggle. Wallahi, your life is all about struggle. There is no part of your life that you're going to start thinking that, hey, you know what? I just want success. And what was the purpose of us being in this world? Ask yourself that. Why do you continue to look in the mirror and think, I want the finished product? Automatically. And even if you do give the finished product, how do you even handle that? Because even at that point, you might still fail. God gives you $1 million, you take the $1 million, you don't know how to handle that $1 million because you didn't even know how to handle $100. So this is what's interesting to me, right? How is this related to the Great Lock-in? Okay. As I just told you, you need to explain your story to yourself. This is a conversation. I said one of the best conversations to have is with yourself. First is to God, and then to yourself. Those are the two most important conversations to have throughout your life. Okay. So to embrace your struggle and failures is part of the process. Now, does a trendy topic tell you, the Great Lock-in tell you to continue to just lock in, and then what? What happens before September? Then what happens after December? Because that's the time period of Great Lock-in, right? It's the New Year resolution, just in a different version of it, right? New Year's resolution consists of December 31st is New Year's, and then January 1st of the next year, you're a whole new person. How? Does that day change? What difference does it make from December 31st to January 1st? And it's amazing branding for some of these corporations because it's like, yeah, it's Q1 for us anyway. So let's try to embrace some of these people rushing into the gym, right? Let's make it cheap for them, and then let's upsell all them throughout the year because we know some of the people. You know what I wonder? SubhanAllah. I was thinking about this the other day. How many people that actually attend the gym after January 1st for, let's say, after Q1, from January to March? Okay, cool. After Q1, what happens for some of these members when they fall off? Guess what happens? Majority of these gyms, I would say, I didn't do any research, so correct me if I'm wrong. Some of these members that are under the same gym memberships, they don't go to the gym. So you just take the money without even noticing it. Some of them are under contract. Some of them just don't go to the gym and they don't even notice the money's coming out of their bank account. They're too lazy to cancel, and or they're expecting to go back, right? There's some people that just have, the gym is like, hey, you know what? We like that person. You know why? He doesn't even attend to our facilities, right? I wonder, and this is just, again, a fair assumption. That's all I'm doing right now. I wonder how many members that go to the gym and ask themselves, and it's some of these board members, or let's just say there's a meeting and they're saying to themselves, we love the people that just come to the gym knowing that they're going to fall off, and we monetize off, we make money off of them. Our biggest revenue of the people that actually don't go to the gym more than the people that actually go. So what's the difference between that and having that mindset of just falling off after a certain time period in the great lock-in? Now, can it be a double-edged sword? Yes. 99% of people are just going to have a time period in their mind to say, you know what, this is it for me. From September to December, this is who I am. But then it just becomes a problem because, yes, there's a 30-day habit, 90-day lifestyle, cool. But again, going back and regressing to who you are, what is your story? What is your failure? What is the conversations that you're having? Because when you just go with something that's trending, you don't even know who you are. You only know what the trend is and what that trend made you. Now, do people, again, there's exceptions to every scenario, right? But exceptions don't make the rule. Yes, there are 1 or 2 people, 1% of the 99% of people will come out of that and say, yes, this is who I am even after December. And the New Year's resolution, and this is who I am after. Yes, there are consistencies that come with it. But what about those 99% of people that just fall off the wagon? Who do you become? You just become the person that you were before September even happened. You know why? Because the conversation that you had with yourself was non-existent. Now, action is better than words, but words is kind of the stem or the foundation of bringing that action. Those words, again, going back to what I was saying in that episode 1, right? The foundation of building something or building towards something comes with encouragement, with words. Now, you can't just speak and be dependent on the validation of the quote-unquote great lock-in. And again, this comes with validation from other people. It's going back to what I was saying in the first episode. It's literally being independent. The pure definition of society of what independency looks like is telling other people you're independent. Once I see you on camera telling people that I'm about to lock in, it's the same scenario that I just mentioned in the last episode. I am telling people I'm independent, but that doesn't make you independent anymore because you're dependent on the validation or approval of other people. So what does that make you again? You just become another trend. You become another number on TikTok. Yeah, and then you just depend on the viewership that comes with it. And then you ask yourself, where did that person go when they were saying they were going to be locked in from September to December? What happened to those people? Because they told other people about what it is, and then they realized that's not who they were in the first place. The conversation was set on, what do people feel about me, rather than what do I feel about myself? Embracing struggle, embracing failure. What am I failing at? What am I diagnosing myself about? What is the list that I actually put on? What is the things that I'm actually set on to do, right? Yes, now, does the great lock-in consist of all of those things? Yes, but the initial conversation comes with telling people, because when you see this trendy thing, the great lock-in, you're going to see people just talking about it without having the conversation to even start with. The great lock-in starts when you were born. It never started with a time period. Anything that has a time period, you already started to fail. The great lock-in doesn't require you telling other people that you're locking in. The great lock-in requires you having that conversation with yourself. What is independence? As I told you in episode 1, right? Independency is not telling anyone about the work that you're doing behind the scenes. It's literally you versus you as a competition. That is your competition. The conversation is with yourself, right? I failed today. Cool, alhamdulillah. I embrace that struggle. That struggle is going to branch me into a different path. Everybody has their own problems and issues. But to tell people that the great lock-in is going to happen, it's not the first step to that. The first step is to look at yourself in the mirror and not tell anyone about it except yourself and God. Most important conversations. But then when the third party having the conversation with other people, it doesn't become a conversation with yourself anymore. It becomes a conversation with other people. And that validation is what you're relying on. Live by the cheers, cool, you get viewership and likes, but you also die by the booze when you don't have it anymore. What happens when you don't get that viewership anymore? What happens when you don't get the 2,000 views or 20,000 views you got from that video? Do you stop your lock-in? Does it stop at that point? Because the viewership is done, right? I'm not saying you shouldn't document your progress. I'm not saying that. I'm only saying that for you to have your privacy within documenting that progress. It's essential, right? It's very essential to understand what your process looks like and what the story looks like for you. And, and just having to embrace that storyline of yourself is one of the amazing parts of becoming successful. A lot of these people that you see that are at the highest level love getting interviews, especially the ones that are behind the scenes. Do you know why? Because they want to share their story. I got here without anybody knowing how I got there. This is why people getting interviews is one of the most amazing things for them. I want to sit down for an interview because they want to tell their story. The process to where you get to is one of the most amazing parts, as I just mentioned, but a lot of people don't want to see the fail that comes with it. A lot of people just want to see the finished product and for God to gift them something, for even worse, to find somebody that just gives them something. And that's when it becomes, when it goes against everything that you're working towards. It completely goes against that. I hope people start to, for us, especially for me, this is the conversation I have with myself, is to embrace that struggle, man. Is to tell yourself, you know what? I need to get somewhere. Even if it's at the smallest place. Monday, I want to tell myself on Monday, I want to record that first episode of podcasting. I want to edit my video. I want to this and that. I want to, post something that is really important to me, as long as it doesn't compromise my values and principles. I want to do this on Monday. Amazing. But don't have that conversation with strangers outside on the internet. There's no need for it. Because again, you're going to live by the validation from them. But then what happens when they go against you? The conversations that you have with yourself is so important. Why? Because you don't need a trendy topic of the great lock-in or the New Year resolution to bring you up. You bring you up. God helps you. You ask God for the strength, and then you bring yourself up. Because when everybody goes against you at one point, 2, 3, 4 years later, because success is going to be attacked. Imagine you're at the highest level of your life. Do you think people just bring you up? No. We've seen storylines where they also want to bring you down. You're only the hero until you see yourself as becoming the villain. Famous line, right? So to what point do you want to exit? And to what point do you want to know when it's enough? But to what point do you say to yourself, you know what? I still have these certain goals that I want to set out. I have my exit. I know when my enough is. But I also have to set out goal. I have tunnel vision. So when everybody brings me up, and I know some people are going to bring me down, whomever it is, right? People around you that you grew up with, people that you trying to, outgrow, and then to a certain level, and then those people see you ascending, and then they see that, and they say, you know what, we don't like that, and we're trying to bring that. Then what happens then? Do you regress back to square one? Because that's what those people want to see you do. They want to see you at square one. That's amazing, right? That's their story. Their story is to bring you to square one. But what's your story? I want to get to square 10. I want to get to square 100. I want to get to a place where no one's ever seen. Only Allah has seen. Only God has seen this. That's what you want to get to. You want to get to a place where nobody around you can touch you with their opinions or whatever it is. In actuality, what's going to hurt them is you being a source of inspiration. Helping. The key word is helping. But how are you going to help if you're not helping yourself? How are you not helping in any way of helping yourself? How is that going to happen if you're not embracing your struggle or embracing your failures? Failures does not come with trendy topics. Failures come with actually putting in the work. Not talking about it, not going on video and telling everybody that you're going to do it, but actually doing it behind the scenes. That's what shows really passion. That's what separates you from most people. If you want to be at war with people, what separates you from having war with yourself, competitions with yourself, not with other people, is knowing that you have to fight against your desires. Every single waking day, you're fighting with the devil, the thoughts that are going into your head, the whispers that's telling you you're not going to make it, the reminders that you should tell other people, but reminding yourself along the way. You're always under attack. So what war are you going to continue to fight with yourself, but then telling people that, oh, I'm going to do this in a time period? No, you weren't born to go through that great lock-in. God has gifted you since you got into this earth to go through that great lock-in. Why is there a time period to tell you that you are going to do it from September to December? You know? It's okay to tell, maybe, again, are there steps towards certain things? Yes, but don't put a date to it. Do not put a date to it. You know, alhamdulillah, you know, so for me, I just wanted to talk about this for this second episode. I'm probably going to call it the Great Lock-In. What does it mean? But hopefully with this podcast episode, it involved you to have a conversation with yourself, which is very necessary. So I'll see you in the next episode, but I think this was a very important conversation to have. Alhamdulillah. See you guys later. Assalamu alaikum.